My name is Akómoláfé, and I want to start to lead us into a conversation about what I would call the death of the client. This begins our mutual co-inquiry into the vortices and the forces that are impinging on what we mean by care and well-being, and what this might imply for our practice and the traditional therapeutic alliance. We want to start with something I would subsume under the title of the Anthropocene and the Afrocene. Now, this isn't new to us. We are in some sort of planetary crisis. We are seemingly faced with geological tensions, climatic tension, racial upheavals, suffering everywhere in the globe. We've just gone through a pandemic. Many would argue that the pandemic isn't even done with us yet. The idea that we have exceeded the limits that would make for life and health and well-being is tucked into this very charged and loaded idea of the Anthropocene. And maybe I should take a few seconds to say a few things about what I mean by the death of the client. I mean that the ways that we articulate well-being and the way that we have politically arranged the alliance is changing. The clinical alliance is changing. The role between the therapist and the therapist's client is no longer the same. Now the spaces between are charged with different kinds of forces. It would seem like we're being invited to consider that the client is no longer in the room. You might say that the client is the room at this point in time. And so we are, as healthcare workers, as people who care, people who craft our profession around well-being and its meanings and its enactments, we're being invited to face outside the window, so to speak, to look at what the world is doing. And this is what brings us to the concept of the Anthropocene. Very quickly, the Anthropocene is a concept that is agreed upon by some members of the stratigraphic authorities that has to do with the limitations that have been crossed by the industrial man. And it is connected with all the events we're seeing in the world today, the climate change and climate chaos and runaway climate effects and rising tensions, even the fact that some scholars have noticed that our brains get smaller. It seems human brains get smaller in times of global warming.